this video, I am going to unbox the Bi-Tapp. Bi-Tapp is a bilateral stimulation device that is working a little differently than the other tactile bilateral stimulation devices out there. Bi-Tapp is tapping instead of buzzing. So most buzzers, most tactile bilateral stimulation device buzz from side to side, and Bi-Tapp is tapping instead. So let me unbox and see what's inside. So we have an instruction manual from Bi-Tapp and straps to put it around the wrist, and a charger, a little case from Bi-Tapp, and these are the tappers. So that's what they look like. And in the next segment, I am going to talk with Cindy Jones, who is the founder of Bi-Tapp, and she will show us exactly how these work. Cindy Jones, welcome to the Art and Science of EMDR. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
So Cindy, you are the co-founder of Bi-Tapp, the tappers that actually tap. Cindy, how did you come up with Bi-Tapp? How did you start? How did you come up with the idea of starting Bi-Tapp?
Well, I've been a therapist, a mental health therapist, for over 27 years. And then after I was trained as an EMDR therapist, so I was trained to do the eye movements, and then if needed, switch to manual tactile tapping. And then in time, I bought the different equipment, and I just realized that I preferred the tapping. And so then that's where the idea actually came from. And then when you read Dr. Shapiro's, how she came up with it, it really did start with, if you were going to do manual tapping, it really was tapping. And so that's what we set out to do. And my colleague, Haley Taylor, and we worked with a team of engineers, and it actually took quite a lot to get the tappers to tap. But because they tap, we were actually able to get a patent on that. And so it protects there's just no other bilateral stimulation device that does the tapping, and we've had really good feedback from therapists. They really have liked that.
That's great. So I have the tappers with me. You're saying that these are the only tappers, not buzzers, but tappers that actually tap. What else is unique about these, the Bi-Tapp tappers?
Sure. I feel like, just to go from what we used to have, just in general, to just talk about Bluetooth tappers, I know that children's therapists really like being freed up. So like if the kids are doing sand tray therapy, things like that, then they can actually have the tappers in their pockets or the kids' socks, or they can actually wear them on wristbands. And I mean, you can actually slide them, so you can have them just like this if someone wants to hold them, but you can also have them on wristbands. And we have a lot of people, they just slide in, and you can wear them if you wanted to. Some people want to wear them here, and then some people actually just like holding them. So you have the wristband option. And then do you want to just talk about the features on the app?
Absolutely, yes.
So you would download the Bi-Tapp app, and Bi-Tapp actually it's just short for bilateral tapping. So we just made that little clever thing. And so if you downloaded the app, and so if you have that, you would just pair the
sorry, Cindy, is the app on iOS, Android, both?
Both. Yeah, it's on both. And so you just download that app for free. And then the next step would be, you've got to pair the tappers to the app. One of the features, and we'll go over the app with your iPad, but one of the features that's really great is you can customize the settings. I think that's just really important, that you have several options, not just a few, that you have several options. And so when you download the app, you're going to just see that it's really simple. You're just going to have like a turtle and a rabbit. That's for how slow and how fast. And then the second line is how strong do you want the intensity of the tapping. And the reason we chose symbols was because we knew that the tappers would be used in lots of countries. And so we wanted to just keep it just so everyone recognized what those symbols meant. And then once you pair the tappers, if you go into settings, if you're able to do that, so it's the top left-hand corner.
Yes.
Okay, so the very first one says show slider ticks and numbers, and I would just turn that one on.
Yeah, it's on my end.
Good. And then you just go back to the main screen. And now you have a number line, and that's, obviously important for lots of reasons. You want to be able to see where people want the rate of speed and the intensity. And then if you go back into settings again, it says show slider value. That is the second one. And so if you click that option and then you go back to the main screen, one of the features that's really nice, and so you've got yours on, so now you have values above each of the lines, so you can really precision dial in. So just start tapping on the turtle. If you just tap on any of the icons, they'll go up or down by one, so it's just very fine tuning. And so if you had a client that you knew exactly what their settings were for reprocessing, see, then you can just dial that up and have that ready. And so that takes it kind of like you have their profile. And so that's a very nice feature. And then if you go back in again, we had a lot into settings. We had a lot of requests for the tapping counter. So now turn that one on and then go back to the main screen. And then right above play, it has a value of 0. And so the play button, when you hit that, when it does a pass, like a left or right pass, it actually now is going to count the passes for you. And so if you knew I want to stop at 10 or 15 for people that want that feedback, you actually have that feedback. And then you can stop. When you stop the tapping and then you start it again, it starts the counting over again. So it has a counter on it, and that's a really good feature that we've had a lot of people request. So we're very open and receptive to feedback. And so we add the features as they come, as many as we can do, we do. And then if you go back into settings, the next thing says auditory bilateral tone volume. If you had earbuds in and you wanted to have auditory BLS, you could, and then you would just turn the volume up to about the middle, and then you'd have the earbuds, and it's synchronized, with the tapping. So you have two of the modalities on this app. If you don't want that, then just turn it all the way to the left, because then that sound would bug you, if you weren't using that option. So just turn that one off. And then the rest of it is if you are doing teletherapy, at this time, we've worked with remoteemdr.com, so they're just a teletherapy platform, and you can actually have the therapist control the tapping during the session. And so then if you were the client, so Rhoda, if you were the client, then just turn on allow provider control, and then so turn that one on, and then you would turn on show provider setup code. And then that code, it's specific to your phone. That's the code you would give the therapist, and they would enter it into remote EMDR to their platform. And then that's when the therapist, it's paired and can sync. And then when it's over, then you just turn that off. Just turn off allow provider control. And then then the controls back with the person. And so those are the features of the app if you're using it for teletherapy. And I would say just a couple other things that are really nice, Rodham, is the batteries are rechargeable and they last about 60 hours. And so
60 hours of
yeah,
work time?
yeah, yep. And you can track it on the battery icon. So you can tell as it's getting low, then that would be a good time to charge it. But that's a big deal because as a therapist, you don't want to have to, do a couple sessions and then charge again. So these
Right.
should last you I would say you don't have to charge them once a week or once every 2 weeks. And that's
Right.
a that's a
They
nice
come
feature.
with a USB charging, which is pretty easy.
Yes.
Just
Yep, I should have.
regular micro USB.
And it's a splitter cable, so then you can charge them at the same. They both have a charging port, and so then you can actually charge them at the exact same time. And as they're charging, the light on the tappers blink, and they charge pretty fast. And then you just want to keep them on the charger till they quit blinking, so maybe a half hour at the most. And so for a lot of therapists just put them on overnight, as they're leaving their office, and then they're ready to go the next day. And the other feature, I don't know that everyone likes this, everyone needs to use this, but you can actually hold the tappers and then just hit your start button on your app. So
Mhm.
if you hit the start button, And just pretend I'm your therapist and you're reprocessing.
What did I do here? I messed it up.
Oh,
So
so go back to the main screen.
yeah.
And
Maybe allow provider control. I need to turn
oh,
that off.
turn that off. Yeah, turn that
Yeah.
back off.
Okay. All right. And
Yep.
now my play button is blue again.
Yeah. So it thought it still needed to be with the therapist. Yeah. So you
Right.
unhook that. So if you turn that start button on, okay, and then I stop and check in with you, and then you could do a quick press on one of the buttons. So just quick press on one of the buttons,
On one
and
of them.
just one of them, and they should stop tapping.
Oh, they did.
Yeah. And then quick press it again, and they'll start again.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's just for people that like want all that control. And if a therapist doesn't want to mess with the phone, you can start and stop it, but you have to be with the app to change the settings. But if you knew what the setting was for that reprocessing, then that's a way your client can just quick press, but they would want to practice it so that they don't, inadvertently turn the tappers off. But once they get it, if that's something they like and you like as the therapist, then that's an extra feature too. And if not, then that's okay. But it has lots of nice features like that. And we've gotten really nice feedback about that too.
That's great, Cindy. So one more question, Cindy, before we say goodbye. I know that these are used for EMDR therapists, but you've also been using them for the general public as a calming, relaxation, self-regulation tool. Can you just say a few words about that?
Yeah, in my practice, when I was doing, and I'm an EMDR therapist, but when we were designing those, if people came in, and I think a lot of therapists already know this, but when people came in dysregulated or say out of their window of tolerance or in hyper arousal or red, whatever term you use for heightened, if I had the tappers, I used the older equipment back at the time, but I would just hand them that at a slower pace. And then I noticed that as they just held those, then they just calmed down. And so they're not reprocessing, they're just calming down. And so I've just done some research, and I have to look at this right here. I won't remember it without looking, but there's research that they would do script driven imagery, like they're having someone read a trauma narrative, and then they're checking like an fMRI. They want to see what's happening to the brain, and they can prove that when someone is upset, then if it's upset, then that amygdala is really ringing the bell, and then they can show that your thinking part of your brain just doesn't work as well, and speech doesn't work as well. And so it's important to get someone back in their window of tolerance, and that seems to be a super simple way. And I know there's other ways, like having them stand up and stretch or take a drink of water or take a deep breath, but handing someone the tappers is a big deal. And we've had them in schools now for probably since 2017. And the feedback has been that kids are calming down and they're able to go back into class. Either they calm down and then they do better, but if they're having a really hard day, they let the kids of all ages check them out, and they're back in class and they're able to study and focus. And we have reading scores going up and attention scores and test scores. Like, it's because their nervous system needs to be calm for them to learn and do well. So we're finding, that's just one example, but we're finding lots of uses for the tappers, and we didn't expect all of that, but it's been really gratifying.
That's great. Okay, so Bi-Tapp, not only a tool for EMDR therapists, but also a self-regulation tool. Cindy Jones, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.